Hey, hi, and howdy to my sweet friends. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome if you are new. I'm Courtney. I do food and kitchen related content here on my channel, grocery hauls, what's for dinners, meal prep videos, lunch packing videos, baking videos, all the videos about food, kitchens, and cooking. That's what I do. If you like that, make sure you hit that subscribe button, stick around, and just kind of join my crowd here. We have a great time sharing what I do, what I cook for dinner, my grocery hauls, and all that kind of stuff. So glad you're here. All right, so I've got 3 meals to share, but it's like a little bit more because on this one I've got the main dish plus 2 sides. I'm making roasted chicken, which I've done before on my channel. I just roast leg quarters. Like, they're cheap, they're very easy to find, and because they're dark meat, they don't tend to dry out, even if you happen to overcook them, as I sometimes do. I just feel like they're the way to go if you're looking for like a budget-friendly, home-cooked kind of meal. These are delicious. So I just buy the big giant bags of leg quarters, and I happen to split this one in half. Half of it made dog food and half of it made human food for dinner. So I got 4 leg quarters. I leave the skin on because it helps, it gets crispy, but it helps keep everything nice and juicy. And then you can season these any way you want. This is our current favorite seasoning right now, which is this Italian blend by Kinder's, which, by the way, I can't even get at Sam's Club anymore, y'all. I'm going to have to order it direct from the manufacturer. I can see it on the Kinder's website, so I can get it there, but I'm really bummed it's so hard to find. Love this stuff. I'm just using that and salt and pepper, but you can use any herb or seasoning blend that you like. You can make this any way you want. Maybe you want it Mediterranean, or maybe you want it more spicy. Maybe you want it more Mexican style. Season these any way your heart desires, any way your family loves, and try a bunch of different combinations, because that way it kind of changes up the meal, but it's super affordable. So I could make 8 or 9 leg quarters for $5 from Walmart. I think it's 5 and some change for the big bag of leg quarters. That's a lot of food. Each leg quarter has a thigh and a drumstick on it. So for some people, that's 1 serving. For me, I only eat the thigh and I leave the drumstick behind for whoever wants it. So this makes a pretty decent amount of food for, the meat portion being about $2.50. You really cannot beat that. It is super easy to work with, and I just think it is the way to go. I do it during fall because it does have to roast. You could do it in your air fryer, but it's not my favorite because these are so big. I feel like they kind of overcook on the skin a little bit before the chicken cooks through. I just pop mine in a 400-degree oven, and I do them anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes, depending on how big they are. Just cook them until they reach, the right internal temperature. So while those are in the oven, I am making this Texas Roadhouse rice, which I was super excited about, and I cannot say enough good things about this because my family adored this rice. So I'm starting off with some bacon grease in my skillet. I actually just chopped up some bacon and cooked it in here because I needed it for breakfasts and for different things throughout the week. We're going to use some in our green beans in a minute. And I left about a tablespoon of the bacon grease behind. Then I added in my rice and my diced onion, and I added in a little pat of butter, just because the recipe calls for a lot of butter, and I felt like a little butter would be fine, and it was. This turned out to be, to me, a little bit greasy, but it was still super delicious. So I'm going to say don't add all the butter the recipe calls for, because it is way more than you're actually going to need. It's way, way, way more. But this rice was fantastic, and it has so much amazing flavor. So I've got the rice and the onion in my skillet with, like I said, some butter and some bacon grease, and I'm letting it toast. I've got, I tossed just the tiniest bit of salt in there and then kind of second guessed myself and pulled it, or didn't toss any more in. I did add some pepper. We've got some garlic powder and some onion powder and some paprika. I think the paprika is what did it here. It added the beautiful color, but it kind of added a little something in the back, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it there for a little while, but it was the paprika. Beautiful flavor. We're also going to add in some soy sauce, and we're going to cook this in chicken broth. I actually happen to have chicken broth on this particular day because I had just cooked the rest of those leg quarters for my dogs. And I had all this broth, and usually I'll just use it to make the rice that I put with the dog food. But today I thought, well, I'm going to use it for the rice I'm making for the people. So I added real chicken broth in. So good. And then a little bit of soy sauce, which is why I was kind of second guessing adding any salt. The recipe did call for it, but I was like, oh, I'm feeling a little iffy about that because I didn't want it to be too salty. And it turned out absolutely perfect. This was so delicious. You just let it cook like normal. I popped the lid on and turned the heat down to low and let it go. It smelled amazing. It tasted so good. So I highly, highly recommend you give that one a try, especially if you like the stick of butter rice. This is similar. All right, so green beans. I've got a family-sized can of green beans here. These are Texas Roadhouse style green beans. I've got some butter. I threw some bouillon cubes in because at this point I am, in fact, out of chicken broth. Then I've got some of my confit garlic in there. You could do garlic powder or real garlic, whatever you want. Some seasoning, salt, pepper, onion powder. I threw in a little bit of red wine vinegar, and there are those bacon pieces. And of course some butter, because everything's better with butter on it, right? And we're just going to let this simmer on low on the stovetop until everything else is ready. This was the last thing I put together, so I think it simmered for a total of about 20 minutes. And these green beans were incredible. You do not need to buy the ones from the can anymore because these taste fabulous. And there is everything piping hot. Fresh from the oven is the chicken. It is dark meat chicken and it is fully cooked. I checked the temperature on it, but it does kind of get a pinkish hue when I roast it in the oven like that. I don't know if it's just because I roasted at such a high temperature or what the science is behind that, but I assure you it is fully cooked. All right, Amish hamburger steaks. So I've made a bunch of different like hamburger steak meals in my time. This one was fabulous. Those Amish people know what they are doing in the kitchen, y'all. So I've got some ground beef, and we're going to add in, the recipe calls for all breadcrumbs, but I have these French fried onions, and I've really got to use these up. I've had them for a while in this airtight container, so they still taste great, and they're nice and crispy, but I feel like they've been in my pantry a long time. So I decided to do like a 50-50 mix with the French fried onions and breadcrumbs just to add some extra flavor to this. And anytime you're making something like this, like meatloaf or anything like that, meatballs, if you have French fried onions or if you have like potato chips or something, they are great to add in here to really bump up the flavor in place of your breadcrumbs. Just make sure you crush them up really, really well. There were not very many seasonings called for in this. Salt and pepper. I went lighter on the salt, and I probably should have gone even lighter with those fried onions because it was just a little bit salty in the end. And of course, you've got onion powder and garlic powder. You can add in real onion and real garlic if you want to, totally up to you. I was actually running low on my confit garlic at this point. I had to go to Sam's Club to get the stuff to make it, and I will be doing that here in the next day or two. But I was really trying to like save it up and use it sparingly for certain things. I did add in the other half of the breadcrumb mixture there. And of course it calls for an Italian seasoning, and I wasn't really sure if it just meant like the herbs or what, so I just used my favorite Kinder's Italian blend. And it called for milk, but all I had left was coconut milk, vanilla coconut milk. And I just really felt like, that's not the flavor that I'm looking for on these Amish hamburger steaks. So I just opened up a can of evaporated milk and just used a little bit of that. I didn't use quite as much as the recipe calls for. And yes, these are my new gloves that I purchased at Sam's Club. They're taking a little getting used to. I have discovered if I tie the wrist up, they work much better because they are way, 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 way too big for my hands. I mean, like, I could fit 4 of my hands in these gloves. They are so big. But I've made them work, and they are a much better price than those other ones I was buying. I like the black ones better, but I got 2,000 of these for the same price as what I paid for 500 of the black ones. So I was like, well, I think we're going to have to just make a switch. But I'm making it work, y'all. I'm making it work. So I mixed everything together really well, and I'm just forming patties. You can make them as big or small as you want. Just make sure you have enough to feed your family. And then we're going to dip them in flour and coat them that way so that they get a really beautiful crust on them. And I'm doing it, sides, top, bottom, the whole bit, just rolling them around in that flour. This mixture does hold together very well. And I can tell you, I think these would make fantastic hamburgers or patty melts. There was a lot of good flavor going on in these patties. I really, really enjoyed them quite a bit. Once you've got them fully coated in your flour mixture, we are going to move them over to the stovetop and get them cooking. They're going to cook half the time on the stove and then the other half in the oven. So if you don't get them finished on the stovetop, no big deal, because they're going to bake for about 30 minutes. So I've got a little bit of oil in the skillet, and I just pop those floured patties in there, and I let them brown. I just set them and didn't touch them for about 4 minutes or so per side, and then flipped them over, and they developed this gorgeous crust, which is flavor. Oh, such good flavor. See, look at that. These were really, really good. They were not fully cooked, like I said, and I wasn't sweating it because we are going to bake them. No big deal. But I got those guys, beautiful crust on the outside, and got them all set up for success. So while that's going on, let's go ahead and hop over to a bowl and get our sauce or gravy, whatever you want to call it, mixed up. Now, I'll link the original recipes for everything I'm making below in the description box. But for some of them, I do cut them in half. So this was a lot of gravy. So I cut the recipe in half because it called for 2 cans of cream of mushroom soup. And I was like, man, that's a lot. So I just did 1 can. And then it calls for milk, and I'm still using my evaporated milk over there because, again, I just didn't feel like vanilla coconut milk was the way to go for these. I thought it was just going to be weird. But I've mixed it in, and I'm scraping out that can, making sure we get all that good mushroom flavor and bits and pieces and everything out of there. If you don't like cream of mushroom, you could always use like cream of chicken or anything else. It really isn't that big of a deal. I always just go to cream of mushroom because it's my favorite. I feel like it has the most forgiving flavor. It kind of just goes with everything. Now, if you really want it to, like, I don't know, elevate these, you could put in some sauteed mushrooms. Oh, I love sauteed mushrooms, one of my favorite things. But unfortunately, my husband does not. So typically, I don't do a lot of cooking with mushrooms. I'll do them on the side for my son and I. But my husband just does not like them. And I hate to let him go to waste. But he does like when I cook with cream of mushroom soup. So we're going to add in some onion powder, garlic powder, Worcestershire sauce. I did add a little bit of milk in because that evaporated milk is pretty thick. So I did add some of that in there, and of course your salt and pepper. And give this a nice big stir. And that's really all there is. This sauce was super easy to make. Oh, it has some herbs in it, parsley. This was so easy to make, like super, super easy. I was surprised at how quickly it came together. This is actually easier than the way I typically make mine, which is a little bit similar, but it's got a brown gravy, a brown mushroom gravy, not a cream gravy. I really enjoyed this cream gravy or creamy sauce. So once the patties had developed that beautiful crust on the outside, I just kind of put them in a baking dish and just kind of did a little Tetris game to make them fit in here because I picked a smaller baking dish. But it worked out fine. And then I topped them with all of that sauce. And you'll see that this was plenty of sauce. I mean, if you are sauce crazy and want to put it on everything else you serve these with, then definitely follow the recipe. Use the 2 cans. But for me, this was more than enough sauce. It was plenty. It was delicious. These were not dried out at all. They were very tender and juicy and soft, and the flavor was incredible. I didn't get a picture of the plates, and I think it's because we were busy that night. So I just had a picture of the actual food. It was Halloween night, so I just had a picture of the actual dish. I cooked everything ahead so it would be ready when we came home from doing the trick-or-treat things. All right, so the last dish is Zatar Chicken. If you've never heard of Zatar, it is a Middle Eastern spice blend. You can pick it up at a lot of grocery stores. You can order it off of Amazon. I got mine at H-E-B. You'll see it in a minute. I bought it in the bulk spice section simply because it was cheaper that way. But, I mean, you can order it, like I said, off Amazon, all kinds of places. So just look around. I'm sure you'll find it. It's kind of got a unique flavor, and I really, really like it. My family loved this chicken. Absolutely loved it. So we're going to kind of marinate the chicken a little bit. So I've got some of my confit garlic in there, and I put a little bit of olive oil to kind of help loosen it up because it is, like, pasty. Whenever you make the confit garlic, it's like roasted garlic, so it's very pasty. So I just kind of broke it down into the olive oil and then added some lemon juice in there. And then we're going to season this with some salt and some pepper, and then add in our Zatar spice blend. I love this stuff. When I was a kid, my dad taught at a university over in Saudi Arabia, and we used to get this Zatar bread. They sold it kind of like on the street corner, like a hot dog vendor, but it was Zatar bread, and they would sell cappuccino at some of the little street vendor sites. And I loved this bread, and I've never found any place that serves it in the United States. But it was always so delicious. It was like this giant round piece of bread with a thick layer of this Zatar spice on it, but I loved it. It was so, so good. If anybody knows what I'm talking about or has a recipe for that bread specifically, somebody let me know, because I've never been able to find it, and I would love to attempt to recreate it just because it was something I really enjoyed from my childhood. All right, so I've got my chicken thighs. You can do breast. You can do whatever you want. I have been working with chicken thighs a lot lately. They're much more forgiving when you're cooking with them, especially if you're grilling or air frying, which we are air frying today. Also, they are much more affordable. So that's just my little tip of the day if you want to cut your costs. Those leg quarters are incredibly budget friendly, and chicken thighs are way more affordable than chicken breast. So I'm just going to coat the chicken in the Zatar spice, and I let it sit for about 15 minutes while I did some other prep work. And then I just sprayed my little air fryer basket with some nonstick spray, and I'm popping the chicken on there, as you can see. And I'm going to air fry this at 375 for 15 minutes. I flipped it over, 375 for about 6 to 7 more minutes, and it was done. I love cooking chicken in the air fryer because it does look like you've grilled it. It kind of gives it a grilled flavor. It is one of my favorite ways to cook it. I think it's just really fabulous, and it kind of, I don't know, just does something nice for it. All right, so we're going to make a yogurt sauce that goes on here. So I've got some of my confit garlic, which again, it's just like roasted garlic. I think I'm going to film it when I make it, either today or tomorrow. I hope to get it done. But I think I'm going to film it. So if you have not seen my other video, it should be in my video that comes out Thursday. We'll do some meal prep together, things like that. Just hang out in the kitchen. So I've got my confit garlic, and I just kind of spread it along the bottom just to kind of break it down because it is, again, very pasty. And then we've got some tahini here. I'm getting near the bottom of my bottle of tahini, so it is a little thick down there. So I ended up just taking off the lid so I could pour straight into my bowl, and that was so much easier. Tahini is just sesame seed paste. It's kind of like a peanut butter made from sesame seeds, but it's a little bit saucier and less buttery. Then we're going to add in some lemon juice, some salt, and some pepper. Give it lots of great flavor. I've never made a yogurt sauce with tahini in it before, but I would definitely do it again. I enjoy tahini. I use it when I make hummus and a few other dips, and I think it has a great, great flavor. And mixing it with yogurt did something really, really nice that I enjoyed as well. So here I am just putting some dried herbs in there. I've got some parsley. I always love to put parsley if I can, and a lot of different things. The dried parsley, you know, it's easier to keep up with. It doesn't go bad in your fridge like real parsley does. And it stays green for a lot of the things you cook, which makes me really, really happy. And there I've got some cilantro. It also called for cilantro, which I didn't have any fresh, but I do have some dried. So I tossed that in. I couldn't really taste it, so I feel like if you want to skip that, you can skip it. I know a lot of people don't care for cilantro. So if you don't want to add it, just don't worry about it. There I've got some really finely diced cucumber, and now I'm adding in my yogurt. And again, this was so good. I liked it. Maybe it's because I kind of get bored with the tzatziki sauce and a few variations of it that I make. And this was a little bit different, but I would definitely make this again. I enjoyed it. My whole family really enjoyed it, and it was wonderful on the chicken. So delicious. So as the chicken came out of the air fryer, I did just kind of chop it up into bite-sized pieces, and then I topped everybody's plate with yogurt on top of their chicken. And the chicken has like a lot of spice, and it's not hot or anything like that, but it is a different flavor from the yogurt, which is really cool and refreshing. So again, it just does something really nice when you pair the two together. But it was that simple, and I had some leftover rice in the fridge, and then I just had some broccoli in the freezer that I tossed in a skillet with some Italian seasoning and some lemon juice, and called it a day. That was it. All of these meals were wonderful. We loved them. I will link them all down below if you want to cook any of these for your family at home. I hope you give them a try because they're just absolutely delicious. Thank you guys so much for joining me here, and I will see you guys on Tuesday for my grocery haul. Have a great weekend. Bye.